Hello students, let us solve some important questions on Jacobian. So you can see that in this question x equal to a into u plus v, y equal to b into u minus v, where u equal to r square cos 2 theta and v equal to r square sin 2 theta. Then we have to find the value Jacobian of xy with respect to r theta. So let us solve the question. So in this case Jacobian of xy with respect to r theta is equals to, you know that, del xy over del r theta. Now if you see the question carefully, then x and y are functions of u and v, whereas u and v are functions of r and theta. Now in this case we have to use the chain rule for Jacobian. And what is that? That is del xy del uv multiplied with del uv del r theta. This is the chain rule to find Jacobian. Now we will calculate these two Jacobian separately. So first find del xy with respect to del uv. Then the formula is determinant of del x del u, del x del v, then del y del u, del y del v. Now since x equal to a into u plus v, y equal to b into u minus v, then del x del u equal to a, del x del v equal to a, and del y del u, because of y equal to b into u minus v, del y del u is b and del y del v equal to minus b. Hence the determinant is minus ab minus ab, that is minus 2ab. Now calculate the second one, that is del uv del r theta. So del uv del r theta equals to determinant of del u del r, del u del theta, then del v del r and del v del theta, determinant of this one. So u equal to r square cos 2 theta and v equal to r square sin 2 theta. Hence del u del r is 2r cos 2 theta, del u del theta is minus r square minus 2r square sin 2 theta, then del v del r equal to, because of v equal to r square sin 2 theta, so del v del r is 2r sin 2 theta and del v del theta equal to 2r square cos 2 theta. Now if you calculate the determinant, then this is 4r cube. If we take this as common, then cos square 2 theta plus sin square 2 theta. And all of you know that cos square theta plus sin square theta equal to 1. So this is 4r cube. Hence the final answer, that is Jacobian of xy with respect to r theta is equals to multiplication of these two, that is minus 2ab with 4r cube. Then it is minus 8ab r cube. Hence move on to the next question. So this is the question that we have to find del xyz del r theta phi, this Jacobian. But x, y, z are functions of u, v, w. You can see here. So del xyz del r theta phi, if we want to calculate this, again we have to use the chain rule for Jacobian, that is del xyz del u, v, w multiplied with del u, v, w del r theta phi. Similarly, like the previous question, again we will solve separately these two. So first solve del xyz del u, v, w, which is equal to determinant of del x del u, del x del v, del x del w, then del y del u, del y del v, del y del w, del z del u, del z del v, del z del w. You can see that x, y, z are these functions. So if we want to derivative with respect to u, v and w, then del x del u is 0, del x del v is minus square root of w by square root of v, and del x del w is minus square root of v by square root of w. Del y del u is similarly square root of w by square root of u. Del y del v is 0. Oh, 1 2 will be there, sorry. So 1 by 2 will be there. Then del y del w is minus square root of u by 2 square root of w. And next minus square root of v by 2 root u minus root u by 2 root v and 0. Now if you calculate this determinant, then square root of w by square root of v with 2, then minus square root of uv by 4 into square root of uw minus square root of v by 2 into square root of w into square root of uw by 4 into square root of uv. That is minus square root of uvw by 8 into square root of uvw minus again square root of uvw by 8 into square root of uvw, which is equal to minus, you can see that these two are cancelled out. So minus 1 by 8 minus 1 by 8, that is minus 1 by 4. Now we have to calculate the second one, that is del uvw with respect to del r theta phi, which is equal to del u del r, del u del theta and del u del phi. First row, second row is del v del r, del v del theta, del v del phi. Third row is del w del r, del w del theta and del w del phi. That is equal to, since u, v, w are these functions, then if we derivative with respect to theta phi, then del u del r is sin theta cos phi, del u del theta is r cos theta cos phi, and del u del phi is r sin theta minus r sin theta sin phi. Del v del r is sin theta sin phi, del v del theta is r cos theta sin phi, and del v del phi is r sin theta cos phi. Del w del r is cos theta, del w del theta is minus r sin theta, and del w del phi is 0 because w equal to r cos theta. So if we calculate the determinant, then this will be r sin theta cos phi along with r square sin square theta cos phi minus r cos theta cos phi multiplied with 0 minus r sin theta cos theta and cos phi minus r sin theta sin phi along with minus r sin square theta sin phi minus r cos square theta sin phi. So calculating r square sin theta, sin cube theta cos square phi minus and minus is plus r square cos square theta cos square phi minus r sin theta sin phi, and from this term you can check that minus r sin phi and sin square theta plus cos square theta is 1, hence that is r square sin cube theta cos square phi plus r square cos square theta cos square phi plus r square sin theta and sin square phi. Now one more thing, I think I have done a mistake in this calculation. Okay, this will be r square cos square theta cos square phi and 1 sin theta will be there. So 1 sin theta will be in this term. Hence if we take r square sin theta cos square phi, then we can have r square sin theta cos square phi into sine square theta plus cos square theta. So from these two terms we can write sine square theta plus cos square theta plus r square sine square phi sine theta. Hence r square sine theta cos square phi plus r square sine square phi sine theta, because sine square theta plus cos square theta equal to 1. That is, if we take r square sine square theta, then cos square phi plus sine square phi is equal to 1. So it will be r square sine theta. Now multiply these two to get the final answer. So del xyz del r theta phi is equal to finally minus 1 by 4 r square sine theta. This is the final answer.